Caroline Hardcastle. You don't mean to say you're C.E. Hardcastle, the cookbook author? I think you're too modest. There's not a housewife in London without one of your recipe books in her home. But Miss Hardcastle waved away the praise. It's little more than trial and error, coupled with writing down observations. I dare say anyone could do it if they felt the inclination. It was the sort of modesty that was expected of ladies, but Kate disliked seeing someone as obviously talented as Miss Hardcastle so dismissive of her own talent. Your books are more than just recipes, though. There are bits of history and cultural notes. I've read all of them, and I only set foot in the kitchen to give instructions to my cook. Flags of colour appeared in Caro's cheeks. Thank you. Coming from you, that's praise indeed. Clearly uncomfortable with the discussion of her own writing, Caro changed the subject. It seems we were both captured by less than entertaining conversationalists before we found each other. She cast her eyes in the direction of their host, who was speaking to the room at large, and now we are all forced to listen to this lecture on propriety from a man who is known throughout the tongue for his affairs. That was news to Kate. Poor Milly. She'd known Sir Horace was a rotter, she just hadn't realised how much of a one he was. He's a bit hard to take, isn't he? Caro said, watching as the man continued his monologue. And really, how dare he suggest that any topic should be off-limits for ladies? Kate scowled. After all, we ought to know what's going on in the world around us. We are the ones who are most often preyed upon by unscrupulous and even deadly men. I, for one, would even go so far as to say that if ladies were encouraged to speak openly about the things that most frightened us, we would all be the safer for it. One cannot protect against a danger that's completely unknown. As she spoke, Kate's voice rose, and, as sometimes happens, did so during a lull in the other discussions in the room.
"I must protest, Lady Katherine,"
said a portly gentleman with walrus-like whiskers.
"Ladies are not constitutionally strong enough to hear about the harshness in our world. It is our job as fathers, brothers, husbands, to protect you from the knowledge of such things. Why, I know of one young lady who went mad from hearing about such awfulness."
Before she could respond to the criticism, Kate heard a sound that was part way between a train coming into the station and a kettle on the boil. To her amusement, it had erupted from Miss Hardcastle's mouth. "Mr. Symes, please acquit us with some degree of sense. I know very well you're speaking of your niece, Miss Ruby Compton, and everyone knows that she was and is far from mad. She simply chose to fall in love with a fellow neither you nor her parents found smart enough, and you had her spirited away to Scotland. The story of her madness and fictitious institutionalization might very well fool some people, but I knew Ruby at school, and I had the full story from another school friend." It was quite difficult to watch the man's mouth open and close, rather like a fish removed from a stream, without laughing. So Kate decided to speak instead. "I agree with Miss Hardcastle. It does no one any good to be wrapped in cotton wool and protected from the things that pose the most danger. I don't suppose you would agree that it was perfectly acceptable to tell your daughter that arsenic is safe to eat, Sir Horace? Or you, Mr. Harrington, would you tell your sister that your prize bull poses no danger to her?" Not waiting for them to respond, Kate continued, "Only a mile or so from here, there are girls as young as 5 years old who know more about the dangers posed by the predators of London than a gently raised young lady of 18. Why should an accident of birth mean that we should be kept in ignorance?" "Well said," Caro agreed from beside her. "I think Catherine's right." Milly's voice was a bit shaky, but she pressed on. "There are dangerous things and men in the city, and yet you would protect us to such a degree that we wouldn't recognise the devil himself if he crossed our paths." Kate rather suspected Satan counted disguise as one of his specialties, but refrained from pointing it out. "An excellent point." Caro gave a smile of encouragement to Milly. "And since Scotland Yard hasn't managed to capture the likes of the Commandment's killer as yet, then we need every tool at our disposal, and knowledge happens to be the most readily available." At the mention of the murderer, whose string of killings across the capital had even the most confident of men looking over their shoulders, a murmur went through the room.
"Now, Miss Hardcastle, you go too far," said Sir Horace. "The Superintendent of Police is a good friend of mine, and he's got his best man working on the case."
At the mention of the man leading the investigation, Kate couldn't stop her.